The Sacrifice of Alcestis, Chapter 1. Chapter 1. Once upon a time when Peleus, the crafty king, ruled in Iolcos by the sea, his nephew Jason came and tried to win back from him the land that was his by right. But Peleus put him off with cunning words, and sent him forth to Colchis in search of the golden fleece, thinking that so he need never look upon his face again. Jason, therefore, who was brave and stout of heart, and feared not man nor beast, sent a proclamation through the land, bidding all who loved adventure to join him in the good ship Argo, and sail with him for the golden fleece. From the length and breadth of Hellas the heroes and sons of the immortals flocked. Among them came Admetus of Pheræ, in the first bloom of his manhood, and sailing with the Argonauts, he braved all the terrors of that fearful voyage, and Saturday at his oar like a man in the midst of deadly peril. After many a long day the remnant of the heroes who had sailed away from Iolcos returned with the golden fleece, and standing before proud Peleus, they laid it at his feet. In the great hall of the palace he received him sitting on his throne, on his right hand Saturday Philomarche his wife, and all about him stood his daughters, Pisiditsa and Asteropeia, Hippotho, and Evadne, and Alcestis. Maidens whose beauty would gladden any father's heart. But fairest of the fair, as the moon among stars, was Alcestis. When Admetus looked upon her face, his heart was filled with love for her, and he swore a great oath that he would live and die unwed, or else have Alcestis to wife. When Peleus had welcomed back the Argonauts, he bid the henchmen spread the tables in the hall, and soon the king with his son Alcestis and all the menfolk were seated with the heroes round the well-filled board. Against a pillar leant a minstrel, who sang of great deeds and heroes, and how the good ship Argo had braved the terrors of the seas. While the daughters of Peleus bore round the sweet dark wine in flagons, and filled up the golden goblets. To Alcestis it fell to fill up the cup of Admetus, and as he held it out towards her their eyes met, and she blushed beneath his gaze, and tried to hide her confusion in the folds of her veil. She was vexed with herself for the blush and vexed with him for having called it forth. Yet withal her heart beat fast, and the beating of it was not altogether born of wrath. For Admetus was a proper man in the prime of life, who had sailed the high seas and seen danger face to face, and a brave man's admiration is ever dear to a woman's heart. So it came to pass that when Admetus drew from his breast a lock of the golden fleece, which Jason had given him for a memorial, and held it forth to her, she refused it not, but took it and hid it in the folds of her gown, and when Admetus was gone away she would draw it forth and sigh as she looked at it. When Admetus saw that she did not altogether disdain him, he was glad at heart, and plucked up all his courage, and went and stood before the king her father, and boldly asked her hand in marriage. As he spoke the king's brow darkened, for he loved not Jason nor any of his crew. He had sent them forth, as he thought, to their death, and now they were come home to wrest the kingdom from him and give it to the lawful heir. So he cast about in his mind for some excuse. For Admetus was nobly born, and heir to a great kingdom, and he could not say him nay without good reason. In his trouble he bethought him of an ancient oracle which a soothsayer had spoken when Alcestis lay a babe upon her mother's breast. Till now he had put aside all thought of it, and had looked upon the seer as a mad prophet whose words were of no account. But now that they would serve him in his need, he pretended that he had always laid them up in his heart, and intended to abide by them. "Young man," he said, "they who would woo my child Alcestis must woo and win her as the gods have ordered." When she lay in her mother's arms, there came a prophet and stood over her and spake, saying, "Child of evil fortune, whosoever thou weddest, woe to thy wedded life, so be it thy lord come not to bear thee away in a chariot drawn by a lion and a boar." Thus spake the prophet of the gods, and his words shall surely come to pass. Think not, then, that I will give my daughter up to misery, or that thou hast but to look on her beauty and long for her, to have her for thine own. Nay. Hence, away, and bethink thee how thou canst so beguile a lion's heart that he shall walk tamely in the yoke beside his lawful prey. Then, and then only, when thou comest driving this strange pair shalt thou have Alcestis for thy wife. Admetus was sad at heart when he heard the king's words, and he set out sorrowfully home for the halls of Pheres, his father. For he thought that this thing was beyond the power of mortal man to do, and that all his life long he must live in loneliness of soul, without Alcestis to wife. When they heard of the son's return, Pheres and Periclymene, his wife, came forth to greet him, and fell upon his neck and embraced him with tears of joy. A great feast was prepared, and the altars of the gods sent up to heaven the savory smoke of sacrifice, and all the people rejoiced together at the return of the hero their land had sent forth. After all the feasting and merrymaking was ended, Pheres drew his son aside to his chamber and said, "My son, whilst thou hast been away in strange lands the hand of time hath dealt heavily with me. My knees are weak beneath me, my hair is white with age, and all my strength is gone. Year by year it groweth harder for me to ride forth among my people, and the folk on the far boundary know my face no more, and I cannot say whether all is well with them. Time is it for me to give my crown and scepter to a younger man, and thou hast shown thyself worthy to rule. Take now the kingdom from my hand, that thy mother and I may pass our last years in peace together. A mighty kingdom have I builded up for thee, and worthy of mighty kings. See to it, then, that thou take to wife some princess of a royal house and rear up a son to rule the land when thou art dead." And Admetus answered, "The kingdom will I take from thee right gladly, my father, and rule it well and wisely so long as the gods shall give me strength. But as to taking a wife in my halls, that I can never do." Then he told him of his love for Alcestis, and how he could never hope to win her. But his father laughed and shook his head. "'Tis the way of hot-headed youth to think that in all the wide world one woman alone hath a fair face and bright eyes. Time and the beauty of another woman shall heal thy malady, never fear." "Time and another woman may drive me to my death," he answered hotly, "but never will I wed with any maid save Alcestis alone, whom I love." And he strode in anger from the room. But Pheres laughed the louder. "Verily, young blood is the same the whole world through," said he. So Admetus became king of Pheræ, and ruled in his father's stead. And from the shores of the sea below Pelion to the land of the Molossians, the mountain folk of the far west, his name was held in honor among his people. For the land had peace in his day, and the valleys stood thick with corn, and by the fair flowing waters of Bebe the shepherd played his pipes, and his flocks wandered browsing about the green meadows. No stranger was ever turned away from the palace doors, but, however poor and ragged he might be, he was welcomed right gladly, and feasted in the halls and sped upon his way with kindly words. So it came to pass that through the length and breadth of Hellas, when men spoke of good cheer and hospitality, they always raised the cup in honor of Admetus, the kindliest of hosts to rich and poor alike.